Pressure is revealing, not because it creates a different person, but because it removes the luxury of pretending. When life is comfortable, people can perform versions of themselves for quite a long time. Patience looks easy when nothing is threatened. Kindness looks easy when there's no inconvenience. Discipline looks easy when motivation is high. Calmness looks easy when the outcome doesn't matter. But pressure compresses everything. And under compression, priorities become visible. One of the most misunderstood things about human behaviour is this: people don't always rise to pressure. Very often, they narrow to their conditioning. That's important, because under stress, the brain becomes more efficient but less expansive. Psychologically, this is linked to survival circuitry. The nervous system starts asking, what matters most? What protects me? What reduces uncertainty fastest? And suddenly behaviour changes. Not always consciously, automatically. You can see this everywhere. In markets, in business, in relationships, in leadership. The moment uncertainty enters the room, people reveal what they truly value. Some prioritise truth. Some prioritise comfort. Some prioritise status. Some control. Some prioritise survival at any cost. Because pressure reorganises behaviour extremely quickly. That's why calm environments can be deceptive, because without consequence, almost anybody can appear emotionally intelligent. Real behaviour, or real behavioural structure, I should say, appears under load. And this is where observation becomes powerful. Because once you understand this, you stop analysing people only by who they are during ease. You start watching who they become during friction. There's a psychological phenomenon called cognitive load. The more pressure the brain experiences, the less bandwidth remains for nuance. And this explains a lot about modern behaviour, why people become reactive online, why people oversimplify, why emotionally overwhelmed people become impulsive, why stress reduces long-term thinking. Because pressure compresses attention toward immediate resolution. That's why urgency changes behaviour so dramatically. The brain starts trading accuracy for speed. This is also why markets become irrational under emotional extremes. Fear compresses time horizons. Suddenly everybody wants certainty immediately. People stop observing structure. They react emotionally to movement. And ironically, that's often where the biggest mistakes happen. Not because people lack intelligence, because pressure hijacked perception. You see it socially too. A person who seemed grounded suddenly becomes defensive. A leader who spoke confidently disappears when responsibility increases. A relationship that felt stable begins collapsing under uncertainty. And people often say they changed. Sometimes they did. But often pressure simply exposed the hierarchy underneath the personality. Because priorities are always there, right? Pressure just reveals the order. And this matters deeply in life, because once you begin recognising pressure patterns, you stop being hypnotised by surface presentation. You start asking better questions. Not what do they say matters, but what survives when things become difficult. That's the real metric. Under pressure, attention becomes selective, and selective attention reveals values. Where somebody places energy under stress tells you almost everything. Do they move toward responsibility or avoidance? Toward honesty or narrative control? Toward structure or emotional chaos? Toward clarity or distraction? Pressure exposes all of it. And interestingly, this applies internally too. Most people think they know themselves until certainty arrives. Then suddenly, emotions intensify, routines disappear, reactions accelerate, impulses increase, and consistency weakens. And that's confronting, because pressure doesn't just reveal others, it reveals us. But this isn't negative, actually. It's useful, because awareness creates adjustment. You cannot refine behaviour you refuse to observe. And many people spend years trying to protect an identity instead of understanding their patterns. But growth often begins the moment observation becomes more important than ego. And there's another layer to this. Pressure doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it's subtle. Accumulated fatigue, financial uncertainty, emotional overload, constant stimulation, digital noise, invisible tension. And slowly the nervous system shifts into prioritization mode. You become shorter, more reactive, less patient, more compulsive, less perceptive. And because the change happens gradually, most people don't realise the pressure is already reshaping them. That's why self-awareness matters. Not in a performative way, in a practical way. Because the ability to observe your own behavioural shifts under stress is incredibly valuable. You notice your tone changing, your attention narrowing, your urgency increasing, your patience shortening, your perception distorting. And once you can see it, you can interrupt it. The goal isn't to eliminate pressure. Pressure is part of life. Pressure can sharpen people. Pressure can mature people. Pressure can clarify people. But unmanaged pressure exposes unconscious structure. And unconscious structure runs people's lives far more than they realise. The interesting thing is, some people become more dangerous under pressure. Others become more disciplined. Some collapse emotionally. Others become incredibly, get my words out, incredibly precise. And usually those responses were rehearsed long before the pressure arrived, quietly, repeatedly, over years. Which means the real work is rarely built in crisis itself. It's built beforehand. in habits, in observation, in emotional regulation, in honesty, in repetition, and in structure. Because when pressure finally arrives, you don't reveal your intentions, you reveal your conditioning. Anchoring light and awakening strength, the equilibrium path unfolds.